Hey everybody, welcome to Black Lotus Live. We're talking about all things strange and unusual. And tonight we are welcoming back none other than the amazing Erica Lukes. And it's such a pleasure to have you. Hi,
Thank
Erica.
you. Thank you. Again, I apologize to all of your listeners who got in last time, and I had computer issues which still haven't been resolved. And so thanks for your patience, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you guys tonight. It'll be fun.
No problem at all. And tonight we're going to be focusing mainly on Skinwalker Ranch. But what I'd like to start with, Erica, is your time with MUFON. And how did you get involved with MUFON, and how did you move up so high in the ranks to become state director of Utah?
You know, that's a great question. I have always loved the subject, the UFO topic. I picked up my first book in grade school, and I have pictures that I did for school reports from 3rd and 4th grade of aliens and spaceships. And so I'm sure my teachers were just like, what is wrong with this small child? And then it's just, grown into this obsession, and just a really fascinating learning process. But back in 2013, was sitting on the deck of my home, which overlooked the Salt Lake Valley, and we saw an unusual sighting. And so, for me, that kind of it further renewed my interest in the subject. I've always loved the paranormal topic and all of this, and so I decided to look into UFO investigations, organizations, and figure out one that, there really wasn't anything at the time. MUFON was the only game in town, really, at that point, and so I reached out to MUFON, and I hear a kitty.
Yeah.
Yay! I'm sorry. I get just. Oh yes. Aww. Oh God, how cute.
Oh,
beautiful.
Pretty cat.
So gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
She's
gorgeous.
A good one.
Yeah.
One of the best.
So sweet. Thank you for sharing. That makes me happy. So I reached out to MUFON. My state director at the time was Max Mitchell, and he was not in the state of Utah because MUFON didn't have directors in every state. And he had trained another person who took over briefly in, Utah, and I think that it was just overwhelming. It's an overwhelming job. So I became a field investigator, and then when the position became available, I became state director. And so it was really interesting to try to reestablish a chapter that was pretty anti-MUFON, because I was taking over essentially for Elaine Douglas, who left a MUFON, and tried to cast a big spotlight on the fact that there were cases missing. Nobody had done anything with the data that Bigelow was buying and selling, Bigelow was buying data that MUFON was selling, and people really weren't aware of that, and they didn't know what was happening. And so that was interesting to try to rebuild the chapter. And then I also became involved with MUFON headquarters, and I was working on the media side of things and trying to spice things up, because MUFON at that point in time didn't really have a message that was communicating to younger people, which I still don't think it really does. It caters to maybe a demographic of 65 to 70-year-old white men.
White men, yeah. Yeah.
And so, I wanted to make it more accessible, and I was really doing good work. I was excited. I was awarded one of the Volunteers of the Year award 2 years in a row, with a handful of other people, and I was really excited about trying to make a difference
Awesome.
and learning things. But that quickly came to a screeching halt. So that's okay.
Well, what happened with that? Why did you end up leaving?
There were a series of things that started to happen. I began to realize that there was a group of people involved with MUFON in the UFO community that were very territorial. They didn't want a new woman coming in and taking over, their territory, and so they began kind of this targeted campaign against me to try to do some really nasty things. And eventually I had a really great case, American Airlines 434, and that made international news. It had great radar data, amazing work that my team did, and that was getting not the attention that it needed. And not only that, people in MUFON Radio were trying to debunk it and discredit the case. And then I was on a specific network at the time, doing my radio show, and that network behind the scenes in their chat room was posting some derogatory things about other researchers. And I had been asked, just a long-winded answer here, I'd been asked at that point in time to speak at a conference on behalf of MUFON. And the person that was holding the conference in this chat behind the scenes at this radio station, they were saying some pretty derogatory things about that person. And so I went to Jan Harzan and Roger Marsh, the communications director, and I said, how do you want me to handle this? I not only have a radio show on this station, but the MUFON radio is on this station, and I'm representing you. What should I do? And Roger Marsh proceeded to go tell the person that owned the station, that hosted MUFON radio, and that person called me up and for upwards of 20 minutes called me a effing whore, on and on and on. Things that you just couldn't even believe. I was in shock. I was in tears. I was really shaken by that experience, and I proceeded to call both Jan and Roger back and inform them of this situation, and neither of them did anything but can let this behavior continue. And so I thought, if that's how little I am valued as a woman, as a person who is donating my time and resources to trying to better an organization, if that is the way that they address issues that are, some of these things are not legal. They shouldn't be ethical. And I just said, forget it. So I resigned, and my assistant state director at the time resigned, and there was an article in Newsweek that touched on this topic about racism in the organization and sexism and some of the things that happened. And, I still, to this day, even though I've got friends in the organization, I interviewed Rob Zwitek, who's on the board of directors, a few weeks ago. I really like him a lot. I still think that there are issues that need to be addressed, not only in MUFON, but in the community as a whole, because there are a lot of people that have been victim to sexual harassment, to this kind of behavior. And that's alarming, and I think that we need to do more as people who have a mouthpiece in the subject to shine a spotlight on it and say, we're not going to tolerate this, because we not only care about other human beings, but we want this subject to grow and prosper, and we want to make a change.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have spoken with several people that were part of, and they don't necessarily badmouth the organization, but they've got basically all good intentions, but it just ended up being, because it started out as a good idea.
Interesting, and there are, like I said, I've got lots of friends. I still speak at different MUFON chapter meetings. I have friends that I absolutely love that are involved in the organization, and they really want the best for it. And there are specific chapters that I believe are operating, with great integrity. But, I still say, at what point in time, when the organization as a whole is not responding in a way that is creating a the vehicle for good research, for the sharing of information. When that's not happening at the headquarters level, then that does cast a shadow on what you're trying to do as an individual chapter or a field investigator. And so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how paranormal is Utah? I mean, Skinwalker Ranch aside.
Well, I would say it was a lot more paranormal in my mind a few years ago. I think, there is UFO activity, there's paranormal activity all over the world. I don't think Utah is a special place for this.
Okay.
I think, what has happened is over the years we had the wonderful Junior Hicks, who lived in Roosevelt, Utah, and collected UFO sightings reports for many decades. And you have that, in other places, like I said, all over the world. But I think what happened was we have people that saw that as an opportunity and then created a myth that is known as Skinwalker Ranch. They created this story, the Colm Kelleher, George Knapp book that is mostly people spouting off cases and examples of paranormal activity, cattle mutilations, skinwalker myths, and things that were taken from different things and kind of, they created a myth. And it was, I think, in part to probably hide activity going on there, probably business deals, real estate deals over the years, a means to get $22 million in funding for basically nothing but for other people to buy property to allegedly, investigate or research crashed saucers. The whole thing has been a huge learning process for me because I bought everything, hook, line, and sinker. And as you know, this has been a story that we've seen, out there for 30 years.
Right.
And at the end of the day, all we have is anecdotal evidence. There's nothing. There's no hard data to back anything up. And we have a handful of people who have made a great deal of money promoting this story decade after decade and really conning the public. This is a grift.
And that's the thing. There are some people that say that the government is hiding something underground there, and they created these myths to distract people. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that that's a really great conspiracy theory, and of course that's something that they would want to put out there to further the myth and to raise questions. But the bottom line is, we've heard for decades, no digging on the property. When you dig, bad things happen. Well, the bottom line is they don't own the mineral rights for what's underneath the property. The Myers family owns that. So, there goes that digging myth right out the window. But of course they're not, going to say that. They'll have a TV show where they've got this large, whatever they're showing underground, and it's a disc or whatever's taking place, which is crap.
Yeah.
Erica,
Excuse me for being so kind and demure.
I love you just the way you are, Erica.
Thank you.
So I thought about. Look. First of all, I'm a big fan. I've listened to
you.
you talk, your own show, other interviews. So I'm well versed in what your story is. But your story made me think about it. I was like, look, I also love Skinwalker Ranch. It's awesome. Like, I love the story. I want to go for a month. I want to have a paranormal thing happen. I want to have a dog-headed man offer me a cigarette. I want all that stuff, right? But then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, where did I get all this information? And it was primarily for individuals. Robert Bigelow, I say is number one. George Knapp, Dr. Colm Kelleher, and then Jeremy Corbell. And then now Brandon Frugal. But it's just a handful of people.
Right.
And that's where all the story comes from, which is interesting.
And I just have to say, I love it when you get into chat. And thanks, all of you. I mean, it's so cool to see you guys in there and supporting me. And I really appreciate your support. That means the world to me. And thank you for listening to what I have to say about this, because it's not a popular, I'm not the popular girl on the block going up against the big
Right.
moguls with all the money and a pretty serious
The
marketing
black sheep
campaigns.
usually isn't.
Yeah, it's been a tough road, but I also think that what I've learned in the process that I've gone through should teach other people that there's something really wrong here, and you bring that up just perfectly. It is a handful of people that have been in charge of disseminating information, and at the end of the day, nobody has anything to back it up. And now we've got this new book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, which is really well, I mean, I don't want to be too naughty.
Go for it.
I mean, it's just it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I mean, we've got flying dino beavers, and I mean, all of this nonsense, and it's just a game. Like I said, it's a grift. It really, truly, in my opinion, that's what it is. And I have, like I said, I mean, over the years, I was a big supporter of this, and I believed it. I bought it. I bought the line that these people repeatedly, year after year, tried to sell me, and they tried to sell it pretty hard coming into my business, trying to give me information, palling up to me, and at the end of the day, they knew that the information they were giving me wasn't going to stick, and I wasn't going to be a mouthpiece for what they were promoting. And
I got to say, that's one of the things that I love about you, is that you don't hold back, and you tell the facts, and you're not going to get the facts from those like that TV series, Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, they're just promoting bullshit,
Well, it's a comedy. I mean,
yeah, it really is.
Like, I mean, I mean, I've been in, TV shows, and I mean, whatever. We've got anyway, it's an interesting thing, but at the end of the day, they first, when the new owner, whoever that is, we're not sure if it's Brandon Fugel, bought the ranch, they, created this entertainment company that was it was formed back in Delaware, from what I believe, and of course that's the great place where you can form a corporation, and you don't have to identify who actually owns a property, who was involved in the corporation, yada yada yada. And interestingly enough, there's some other stuff, but I'm not going to go there quite yet, but I will at some point in time. But the whole thing was just this, creating this bigger myth, and here we've got, Bat Boy flying in on his helicopter, and they're making some, but here, let's pray, everybody, let's pray. This has what to do with scientific research? Nope, but we're gonna pray. And then we've got, I mean, just this cast of white men, again, out there. I think they've got maybe the token woman every sixth episode in there, and things, and they've got fuzzy video when they've clearly got this is supposed to be, allegedly, this is the most scientifically studied place on the planet, and yet they're getting fuzzy video of what appears to be some sort of, demonic dog, shape-shifting werewolf, and it's a reservation dog, but okay. And if that is the way they're choosing to put forward what they're calling science, then I say you're totally full of it. And that whole, and I'm going to be in so much trouble. I'm sure the Men in Black are going to show up tonight, whatever. I'm sick of it. I'm just done with this nonsense. But it's very early on, back in 2016, we were promised transparency. We were promised that people would have access to the data. We were promised that this would not look, smell, touch, sound like anything to do with Robert Bigelow and his old team. And what we have is more of the same. In fact, we just have a bigger show, a bigger circus, like environment. Nothing's been, we haven't seen any data. If what Mr. Fugel wants to call data is a TV show, then I would say no. And I would also say, is this data that you're putting out there, I mean, how accessible is that to other scientists? And, what is the process for looking at this data? I mean, great, they've got a great little set, of lighting from Home Depot, and who knows? Oh God, I need to get therapy. I need to read self-help books. I mean, I'm just like, it just makes me so angry.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and like you point at you bring out this case brings out a lot of good, interesting topics in the paranormal. Number one is data, scientific data, and so it is lacking in this project, in the Skinwalker Ranch. But apparently, Robert Bigelow got the data with his nonprofit organization, which was called the Institute for Discovery, NIDS, National Institute for Discovery Science. Okay, so Robert Bigelow hired these scientists, some respectable people like Dr. Jack Valet. I think Diana Polsky, what's her name? Dr. Diana?
I don't think she was involved with NIDS, yeah.
Okay, no, she wasn't with NIDS, but I think she vouched for the ranch. So she's behind it, and so is Dr. Jack Valet. But the point is that he has not released those files. I think what he has is he hired scientists, they did a research project, all the results are there, and that happened in the 90s, I believe, and he hasn't released them. Why isn't he doing that? Because
he doesn't have it. Because he didn't do it. Because
we don't know unless
he used that money.
Right.
He used that money to I mean, I will, as somebody who has been up close and personal with the ranch and has seen all the reports that have been conveniently handed to me over the years and has seen the email exchanges, insider email exchanges between this group of people and they didn't do anything. There was nothing on the ranch. There was no equipment on the ranch to do anything. And I think they had maybe 5 or 6 cameras up in the field, where the bait pins were. And, one of the cameras was conveniently cut by otherworldly creatures, which, when I interviewed Junior Hicks multiple times, he told me, because he was an electrician, that he went to the ranch. He was asked to go there to fix these wires, and they were clearly cut by another human being.
Right.
And so, I mean, they weren't doing anything, and there is a potential, and I mentioned this because a couple years ago when we had the release of the solicitation sheet for OSAP, I mean, they were, one of the things that was due in RF weapons. And so was there a potential that they could be researching, some sort of non-lethal weapons technology at the ranch? Of course, there probably could be a better place to do that. But, at the end of the day, they didn't do anything, and I think that's why they're not releasing things, because they know it's garbage.
I have about 15 questions for you when you have a chance.
Oh dear, yes. Okay, I'll stop now. I'll focus on self-help books.
No. I have coloring books if you need them.
Thank you. Please send them.
They're paranormal coloring books.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, available.
As long as they don't have hairy half-man beasts in them, I'll be good.
Okay, we'll skip number 1 then. Okay. I lived in Phoenix for a while, and I know what you're not getting for Christmas this year. Anyway, when I was in Phoenix, I was at some sort of con. I think it might have been a Star Trek con or something, but there was a MUFON table there. And I went up to the gentleman. I said, I'm really, really interested. I would like to be a MUFON. And I was shunned. I was dissed. I was shamed. I was sent away. In your opinion, do you think MUFON is sort of misogynistic? First question. Second question, when we spoke with Richard Doty one time, not too long ago, he's like, yeah, I used to be a man in black, but now I'm telling the truth. How can you believe someone whose career was disinformation? Yeah. And now all of a sudden he's telling the truth. So what if the show is the same thing as a Richard Doty, if you want to just call it that it is misdirection, and there's something really going on at the ranch, and I think personally underground. And my other question is, what the heck was going on with a mural in the Denver airport? I think it's gone now, but that one with the Nazis and the aliens and the tunnels?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was creepy. Yeah, I mean, I will admit the Denver airport is quite special when you look around.
I've never been there, but I saw the mural and I was like, oh my gosh,
Interesting art. That's probably the art that I would draw now, paint. So I do think MUFON is I mean, there's a lot of misogyny in the organization. That's unfortunate. I mean, I know I had somebody that was a MUFON state director, and I was at a conference, and I'm a Pilates instructor, and so I had a photo of me on my personal Facebook page where I've got, I'm in a tank top and my hands are here, and I was young. I worked out every day. I'm in a tank top. Well, get over yourself. And that person pulled me aside and said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You just look like, you could be a little easy and, blah, blah, blah." And I'm just like, okay, wow. I hope you don't have children, especially girls. I mean,
That's horrible.
yeah, I mean, it was so, yeah.
Why didn't you
there's
just
a
say
lot.
jealous or trying?
I should have, but I was so taken aback,
I would've.
And I mean,
That's
I'm,
me.
I know that this might seem hard to believe because I'm so spicy now, but I mean, I'm a nice person, and I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and so I was, okay, I thought about it for a minute, maybe I shouldn't, and, so that's been a learning process. And then the Richard Doty thing I think is really interesting because, again, you've got somebody who has always interacted with the usual suspects. He's been a part of this mythology and creating disinformation campaigns and worked for Earth Tech, Jacques Vallée and Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis, and so they've been working it for a long time. And
Well, that's what you would expect them to say is like, "Oh yeah, I'm telling you the truth now, wink, wink,"
Right, just like Elizondo is, he's in counterintelligence and blah blah blah, all this stuff, and yet he's coming out and going to tell you the truth about things, which that's another story.
Really?
But, yeah. So I think it is really interesting in the case of Richard Doty, given what we know about the Benowitz affair and things, how that Paul Benowitz, how his life was ruined by, as a result of some of these characters coming in to his life. And I think
That's what I don't understand. I mean, with the Benowitz case alone, I don't understand why he's so accepted in the UFO community.
Isn't that sad?
It's ridiculous.
He's a cult icon. He's a superstar.
Yeah.
And that really speaks volumes. That's a great point. That
It's all
really speaks
governmental.
volumes about the caliber of people involved in the subject when they don't hold people accountable.
I have to say, viewers, Erica Luce is one of the most knowledgeable people on this subject that I know of.
Thank you.
And she has a wonderful YouTube channel where she streams every Friday night, and it's called UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. And she always has these just magnificent guests on with her. So if you haven't watched that, do yourself a favor, most definitely.
Thank you.
But I want to get back to the misogyny, not just in MUFON rather, but in the UFO community in itself. You were talking about the typical demographic in the community, old white men, pretty much. Why do you think that there are so very few women involved?
That's a great question. I would say from my own personal experience, it's because of the way we're treated.
Mm-hmm.
There is a new group of women coming out, the YouTubers and things, that we see, and my hope and I hope and pray that this new group of women coming out actually takes the time to look at the history of the subject, to learn about some of the people promoting things, and they don't just keep regurgitating the same nonsense so they get hits on their YouTube shows. I really hope this happens. I hope that there's some exceptional female researchers that come to the forefront. We really need that. But it's a hard road to toe, and I think the thing that's sad too is you also have not only kind of the male, all the male nonsense going on, but you also have, a handful of women who are pretty nasty as well, and that doesn't speak highly. And I know for me, when I started experiencing all of the stuff with MUFON and that group of people, I turned to the Women in Ufology page and I tried to get a dialogue going and get people involved so we could make the field safer and better and more productive for women. And I was told that just wasn't appropriate for me to talk about.
Yeah, it's a good old boys network.
So
It
this
really
was
is.
This was a woman
Yeah.
that, said this. So I just
Wow.
thought,
That's this. It's
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Yeah, in '97 we went to it's a very long title, the 50th anniversary of the alleged crash at Roswell. Whew, it's a mouthful. And yeah, I had a baby on my hip, and there was maybe 4 other women there, and they looked at me like I was subhuman, like I don't have a brain or anything, or I can't be interested. And the Phoenix Lights had just happened. Linda Moulton Howe was there, and she was discussing it, and it was like, wow, I was really interested, I was really engaged, but Stanton Friedman dissed me there, and so, but it's an honor to be dissed by Stanton Friedman. But
or is it?
it was funny because I saw him, and I forgot something. I went back into the auditorium, and I was walking out as he was walking in. I was like, "Oh, it's such an honor to meet you. I loved your presentation." And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, are you a researcher?" I'm like, "No, I'm just interested." And he went, and walked off. And I'm like, "Oh my God, okay, well, thank you." But that's something I'm always going to remember.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny to me now, but at the time, I was just like, if I didn't have a baby on my hip,
Yeah.
That's disappointing because I really liked Stanton Freeman. And
Yeah,
it's
well,
sad to
you're
hear that
male.
he treated me like that.
He was always, I will say, he was always very kind to me.
Yes.
But I, was speaking, at conferences with him and things. But you bring up a really good point. It is interesting to be at some of these conferences and then to see the way some of the people that are the idols and the subject behave and treat their fan base and people that are buying their books and paying to hear them speak. It's kind of sad.
I have to cut in here and talk about ufology in general. I'm very into ufology. I'm more into ufology than ghosts or cryptids or whatever else. And, that's what this show is all about. It's about all these topics. But I'm more into ufology. But what's driving me crazy about modern ufology is all the infighting that's going on with the elites in ufology. And I know this has been going on since whatever, 60s and 70s, but it's worse today than it ever has been. I know that Rich Giordano and Stephen, I suddenly can't remember his name.
Cambrian.
From Truth Seekers, but Rich Giordano from MUFON has been attacked by people like Lou Elizondo and Richard Dolan. And it's just ridiculous because I'm of the opinion that real disclosure is not going to come from these guys. It's going to come from the little guys like us and Rich Giordano and Stephen Cambion, because they're seeking the truth and they call out people who are spreading lies, like Lou Elizondo, for example. But why can't we just get back to true ufology, and investigating stuff rather than this nitpicking with each other?
And that's a great question. And I
find it a little bit hard to work with. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I have a hard time dealing with anybody that already come out of the government, just like Lou did, just like the other ones have, and then they try to talk, but they're not saying the truth. They're not helping it. They're not making things easy for anybody.
No, they're not. I mean, they've got a political.
There's more of us that know the truth than a lot of they do.
Well,
it is political.
They're
You're
making,
right.
It is political, and they're making money. And at the end of the day, what do we really know about Lou Elizondo other than what Harry Reid told us? Oh, God, who's all in bed together? I don't know. So and another thing, and Barry Greenwood, who's my mentor and friend and the world's leading historian and archivist, brought up a really great point about some of the releases of these leaked videos and things, and the fact that they're filming, they're releasing, Corbell and his band of minions, Merriman, are releasing information that should be, you would think, reason for an investigation, because why is stuff getting leaked where people, these are military operations. This is a matter of national security.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I think Lou and his group of people I think there's the political agenda. I don't believe their true mission is disclosure. And I know, again, I've got a lot of people that love me. That gang is whatever, but it's true. It's like and I will say that none of those people have ever accepted my request to come on my show. And I find that, it's, you can't handle it? Oh, yeah. You
Well,
probably
and that's the
can't.
thing. Like Lou Elizondo used to go on YouTube channels and stuff like that, and to promote his narrative. But he's doing it less and less now. And I wonder if it's because he's been attacked a lot. But he wasn't attacked without good reason,
If a guy that is in the military can't handle getting attacked, when he's going out and creating sock puppet accounts and attacking other people,
Mm-hmm,
then I would say, that maybe we should all go to group therapy and learn how to handle that. But yeah, I think, I think because there are people questioning this, I think a lot of things will come out in the wash, and I look forward to that happening. If you're a truthful person, you're willing to speak with people who are asking hard questions. And that has not happened with Brandon Fugel. That has not happened, in my opinion, with Lou Elizondo. And instead, it's just, we're going to completely ignore you, or we're going to cut you off from Twitter because you're a bad girl. It's very telling.
Yeah, and that's why I don't do Twitter, because I see the stuff from UFO Twitter, and it's insane, and it just it's the epitome of what I was saying about this infighting. It's ridiculous.
It's toxic.
Yeah, it really is. So I stay away from it completely. What do you think about this 1,500-page report that was just released by the Pentagon?
I need to really dig into it, and I can't honestly give my opinion because I haven't had the time to go through it. But I know that Barry talked a little bit about it on the show last Friday, and so he's going to be writing something about that, I believe, and it'll be interesting. But I need to get on it when I've got a free second to go through it.
I wonder how much of it is actually redacted.
A lot of it, I believe.
Yeah.
My understanding is. And honestly, like I said, there are the issues of national security. I think a lot of things that we've been witnessing are, drone incursions and different things that put us, that are not, it's national security. So I understand why some things have to be redacted.
I understand that too, and I know that the government is never going to come out and admit that that they've known about these things forever, and they've been working with aliens and this and that. They're never going to release that information because honestly, why would you? Simply because of national security. Why would you want to release this information to the public?
I don't think they have that information, really, honestly. And trust me, I've got, and you've heard me talk about this on my show, I've got one of the best archives in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And, historical documents and correspondence between Kehoe and Leonard Stringfield and, Jacques Vallée, all of these things that has given me a very incredible look behind the scenes. And there really isn't any evidence to support the fact that we have crashed flying saucers in our arsenal, that we've recovered them. I don't believe the government, knowing how disjointed it can be and dysfunctional sometimes, I don't believe that we've ever really truly had the funding to study this. But I think a lot of myths have been inserted into the narrative by specific groups of people, whether for political, religious motivations, disinformation, to try to pull in bad actors from different countries. You know, I think there are a lot of things going on in the subject, and so it's curious to me, but I don't think the government really knows what's going on.
Yeah, so you wouldn't believe in the stories of Area 51 then, I would imagine.
No.
No.
Especially because they came from Bob Lazar and, you know, certain people that have a track record of not being truthful individuals. So.
Right.
Do you think?
Yeah,
it's
I'm
kind of
still
like-
kind of on the fence with Bob Lazar, actually. I lean more toward he's a fraud, but he's revealed some things that have kind of blown my mind a little bit. You were mentioning your archives. And viewers, if you don't know this, Erica's archives rival John Greenwald's from Black Vault. And so, again, I'm going to promote this again. Go watch her show.
Thank you.
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
It's wonderful. I've been so lucky, you know, and I've worked really hard as well to obtain all of the documents that I have, the different archives from different researchers, and I, you know, recently was granted the Andruffel files, which is 50, 60 years of incredible research, 70 boxes full of personal correspondence, things that have never seen the light of day. And she worked with everyone. She worked with MUFON back in the day. She worked with NICAP back in the day. She, you know, I mean, did 10 years of research on Dr. James McDonald and wrote a book called Firestorm. She did more work on the abduction phenomenon than almost anyone I know. So it is truly an incredible way for me to learn and to put the pieces together. And then I've probably got, maybe 2,000 books that date back from the late 40s. And I was also given a wonderful treat from Jim Klotz. And I have, over 1,000 books, magazines, periodicals from 1947 on, so from all over the world. And then Barry Greenwood has helped with that, Jen Aldrich, Fran Ridge, and other people. So it is really a treat. And every day I pick up a stack of periodicals and read through things. And so when I'm making statements and things, it's because I am doing the research and I have all of this at my fingertips, and it's really a great pleasure of mine.
What are your thoughts on, well, I'll bring up this one example because it's raised controversy in the last year. Like Travis Walton, what are your thoughts on him? Do you think that he was actually, I'm sorry?
I said Goofon's in the house.
Oh, Goofon's in the house. Hey, what's up, Rich?
Hey, buddy.
But do you think that he was actually abducted, or did he and his buddy make this whole thing up?
You know, that's a great question, and I have to say that I personally like Travis. I've had conversations with him. I've been at conferences with him, and he's always been very nice to me. But there has been, I believe, substantial information that has come forward about holes in the story, and there were questions, that were put out to the public back when all of this first happened, and in my opinion, that is substantial enough to really raise doubts about the veracity of his abduction claims.
I've talked to some people that have actually spoken with him, and all these people believe him. I found that the people who have not spoken with him personally don't believe him.
He is very convincing. He's very calm, and I mean, and again, when when you have told a story, for decades, you are convincing. It's like the Lazar thing, and people can say, well, he wasn't, he didn't speak for a long time. Well, okay, he's perfected the same story, so, whatever. And great, that's a lot of people perfect stories and are convincing. You look at some of the greatest business leaders in the world, and they create stories and are convincing in order to sell things, and they're not always truthful. So
Do you think he's convincing because he's perfected the story, or you get to a point in life where you just don't care what other people think about you, and like, this is my story, you believe me or you don't. This is how it happens.
That's the way I am at this point. I went through an abduction experience, and I don't care if people believe me or not, but I'm going to continue to tell my story, because I think that there are other people out there who have gone through the same thing and are suffering from PTSD. And I want people to know they're not alone,
right.
And they're not crazy. This stuff does happen.
And I
Because
think
there's a sense of calmness when you finally tell the truth, and there's no fabrication. You're just point A, B, C, and D. And you can tell it quite calmly, most of the time.
And I think
that's like a load off your mind.
Yeah,
it is.
like,
but then look at the people who've made careers out of their stories.
Yeah, right.
Is this? Are you?
Well, and I'm not looking to make money.
No, I know you're. I know. I don't think any of us here are. I'm
Same
losing
here.
money, hand over fist.
wait, I
by
want some
doing
money.
this.
I can do money.
But and I'm not on the speaking circuit promoting a story, selling a movie deal, doing all of these things,
Right.
and so you have to, you got a gig, you got to maintain. But I do believe, and you made a really, really, really important point, that people have had experiences, and those people we all deserve to be treated with respect. We all deserve a safe place to share information. We
Right.
deserve to go to a group and to know that our information isn't being bought and sold to somebody who has less than honorable intentions. We deserve to not be corrupted by people who are telling us that we're being abducted by the tall whites with the benevolent space brothers who are here to promote a specific message. We shouldn't be manipulated. We shouldn't be conned. We shouldn't be used as test subjects. We should be sharing stories. We should feel safe, and that's not happening, and that's very unfortunate.
We just had Preston
That's
Denon
where I thought
on
I
with
went
us
when
the
I
other day.
went.
And he was talking about these excuse me. He was talking about these various alien races that are visiting us. And he was talking about the fear factor that has been surrounding these races, specifically like the reptilians and that sort of thing. And he was like, they're not here to harm us. They're here to actually help us. But the government can't keep control of the masses without instilling this kind of fear. And I mentioned to him that I blame the media quite a lot, because this fear factor has been around since, the 40s and 50s, first with comic strips and books, and then later on with these ridiculous old movies, and even up to today with movies like Independence Day, and so I don't think most of the aliens are here to harm us,
I would say that we should be more concerned about our fellow human beings.
Yeah.
But again, like I've gone through such a process in all of this, and today, do I believe that extraterrestrials are here? I don't necessarily. I believe that there's something going on, but it's not what we've been told. It's not what, how do we know that there are all these different races? Who's telling us about reptilians? Is it David Icke? Well, run. it's it's so.
Aw.
I know, no. That guy is.
No. I know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Well, it was Jules Verne, if you want to take it back to that. I mean, he's the one that started most of this.
Right.
You know.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
That we've
It goes
taken
beyond
so
the
much.
40s. You know.
So, but I don't know. But like I said, I mean, I've had my own personal experiences. I've talked to so many others that have. I don't know what it is at the end of the day, and I think that there is something worthy of study, and I think it should be empowering. And I think that, it's like when I've mentioned before, I had the wonderful opportunity in 2017 to travel to Norway and to watch a team of researchers, scientists from all over Europe meet in Hessdalen and watch them set up instrumentation to take out students from Oswald College, engineering students, and to send them up to different places in the valley to set up their equipment and to collect data. And they found some really astonishing things, and that to me is like so empowering. It's like, okay, great, this is worthy of study. And how do we get all the American nonsense out of this and take away Serpo and Area 51 and Roswell and all of these things, I think at the end of the day, that are just creating false belief systems, and then peel it away and look at this pure research. I think that's what we need to do. I think that's important for our mental health.
Right. I totally agree. I think we Americans have made this an American thing, when in fact, UFOs are spotted all over the world. And I also agree that we need to get rid of the whole Serpo thing, that 20 and back thing. I don't believe it for a second. And, we had Tony Rodriguez on with us, and we spoke about it. And as convincing as he was, I'm still not convinced. I think we're going to have somebody who claims that she was part of the secret space program on here pretty soon. And I'm not going to argue with her, but I'll hear her out. But I just don't believe it, and we need to get that out of the narrative, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I agree. And at the end of the day, where is anybody's proof for any of that? They've got nothing. And so I don't know, call me crazy, but
I like what you have to say, Erica, because these themes keep coming back. So I'm a biologist. I've published research. I conduct research. A field biologist, and what you're saying, it's perfect sense, and it's one of the most important things to think about in ufology. It's basically that we have to have data. We have to collect and report data in order to think critically about these things. And a lot of times, all we have are testimonials, which I'll be honest, it's the lowest form of data. There we go.
Yep.
Oh,
he had to come out tonight. Big mister.
Oh.
But
yes, so absolutely, and thank you so much for saying that. That is it's so important. And I've got to talk about all the cool stuff that you are doing.
Well, I will tell you also, it's a little bit of research that I want to do in the future. Now, look, this is specifically about Skinwalker Ranch. What's going on in my head? I want to meet crazy stuff in Skinwalker Ranch. I want to believe it, but I don't have any data. All I have stories, as you illustrated. So what do I have to do in my head? I have to get data. I have to generate data. So I'm planning, I don't think it's going to be too expensive, to go to the basin, live there for 1 month, do some experiments, mainly be out at night. I'll just say that. And I'll see for myself. I want to get my own data. People can generate their own data if they don't know what to believe. That is a good way of understanding the world. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think, for years I have conducted witness interviews with people continually, the same groups of people over and over and over again that live by the ranch that, and I have probably more reports than most people do in their possession that were generated by certain people are trying to be naughty. And that could be a catastrophe for the whole world. But you look at these reports that these security guards generated that were allegedly given to the DIA, and you just think, that is so awkward. And it's even more awkward, I will say, that I did marry somebody that claimed to see a shape-shifting hairy man beast, But that's another story. But anyway, I'm here so people can learn from my mistakes. But it is interesting, and I would recommend getting out there, and I would prepare yourself for a good time.
All right. I have a. Go ahead.
There's some lovely people that I know in that area.
The basin. I mean, it's a large area. There are a lot of cities. There's
Right.
a lot of hotels, motels. Yeah.
And I would be more than happy when you do come out here. I'll take you on a little tour.
Great.
We
Well,
can go have our selfie by the front gate.
so you just won yourself a place in the acknowledgement section of my final paper.
It's funny. I will say that it's interesting that this is a place of danger and horrible things are happening, and people are getting their scalp separated, from their skull and all, yada yada yada, and the government is seriously researching this, and yet there's a little teeny fence you could just walk right over because it's so locked down and secure, because it's such a threat. And there are
Right.
commercial airlines that fly over the property nonstop because obviously there's a vortex, opening up every hour that's, manifesting creatures. And so, just looking at that aspect, like if you go and drive around the ranch and then say, what? Okay, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't hold up. All of these things. That's going to be a really fun and interesting process for you.
I'm thinking of it as a vacation, basically. I want to ask one last question, one real quick question. Erica, what is the thing that excites you most, or what topic or case are you really interested right now at this moment?
I have been so, obviously focused, and I will continue to remain quite focused on Skinwalker Ranch and the people involved and their dealings because of certain situations that I have been involved with over the years at the hands of this group of people. And I think definitely, Joe Firmage is a person that of interest again that I have been looking into, along with a group of other researchers that I'm working with behind the scenes. So that will be interesting as that comes out. So I've been focused on the people. And things, but I'm also, I want to find the joy and the wonder of the subject again.
Yeah.
Because this has been such a hard few years for me, not only, personally, obviously, with the things I went through with Chris Marks, who was a security guard and worked for Bigelow for nearly a decade.
I'm sorry that happened to you, Erica.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's awful.
It's been this whole, the whole thing has been pretty interesting, and if you haven't seen the news story, I would recommend Googling Utah National Guard, Chris Marks, and seeing the wonderful report that Fox News, Nate Carlisle specifically did. He did an in-depth investigation, and I believe will continue to do so, about Mr. Marks. He is a member of the Utah National Guard, and like I said, he did work for Bigelow for quite some time. And it is my understanding that Robert Bigelow wanted this person to be his private security guard, which speaks volumes for Mr. Bigelow. But Mr. Marks right now has 4 charges for domestic abuse in Salt Lake City, and 1 for violating a restraining order. And so that's been a very painful and frightening thing for me to go through. And like I said, you can find out more about that, because I really believe at the end of the day that people need to understand a little bit about that. But so anyway, where was I going with that? I just totally I don't know.
That happens so much in the military. I have a friend of mine whose best friend was killed by her husband in Hawaii. And it's just, I don't know why. I don't know why it's so prevalent in the military.
It is. It's interesting. I've been, as a result of that news story, I've met a group of women that are all over the country, and they are either in the military, or they've been married to or in a relationship with people in the military, and they've had absolutely horrific things happen to them, and we've formed a group of women who are going to be speaking out more publicly about the lack of accountability from
Right.
the armed services, which I think is important. And I know for me in Utah, seeing the lack of response from and some of the things that have happened with the Salt Lake City Police Department and the Utah National Guard, that's been very alarming too. So I hope in another sense, when I can make it through this, hopefully alive, I can be a support system for women who've been abused by their intimate partners. So
That would be great. That would be wonderful. But anyway, I think we're going to get out of here for the night.
sweet.
Erica, thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here.
I'm
It's
glad-
always
I'm
a
so
pleasure.
excited. This has been so much fun, and it went by way too quickly. So we
It
have to.
Viewers, as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that little bell so that you can get notified when we do this. We do this every Sunday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And so don't miss us. We've got some great shows coming up. What else? I was also going to mention once again, check out Erica's YouTube channel here. And it's UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. And I've got a link for it in the description. I've also got a link to her website, which is pretty fantastic. So anyway, if there's nothing else, let's get out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Until
Thank
next time,
Erica.
keep thinking and question everything.